Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining today, or if it's your first time, welcome to my channel in general. Today I'm going to be doing a quick demo of how I do polygel currently, and I am still learning, so I do prefer to use tips. This will reinforce your polygel and make it a lot stronger, and I'm not the strongest sculptor yet, so these ones are ones that were recommended by watching Evie on Long Hair Pretty Nails. So they're the BU brand, and I have in this case both clear and the natural colors. I went ahead and just sized out the natural because I wanted a little more opacity. I didn't necessarily want to have my nails be see-through, but this is just personal choice and what I decided to do. I'm not actually going to keep them this shape though. They are pretty long, so I'm going to cut them down, and we are going to be doing a half moon shape, or like a crescent shape, and I will get into that shaping with you. But first we're just going to do some general prep. I did just remove a set, so there is still a little bit of gel left behind, but I'm not expecting to wear these longer than a day or two. Mainly they're just for this video's purposes and a couple of photos. So I'm going in first with a fine grit sanding band, and I'm going to walk that right around the cuticle line, just removing any additional gel that I missed during the soak off. And this is also going to aid in pushing back the cuticle line a little bit more. And then I'm just going to run that gently across the remainder of the nail, or the nail plate, just to get rid of any of the excess oils that may remain. Next, taking my nail brush, I am just using 100% pure acetone, and I'm going to go in and really swipe any of the debris. I do like to go in a downward motion. If you watched any of my videos, that was just a recommendation from Young Nails, and I have stuck by it. And that will get rid of any debris out of the side walls instead of just going like left to right. Now I'm using my KDS glue, and I'm going to be adhering the tips individually. I did speed this process up, but I do hold them for about 15 to 20 seconds. If you do hear anything in the background, it's just my little ones. I have 3 and I'm expecting my 4th, so the household is not the quietest at the moment since I'm a stay-at-home mommy. But if you have any little ones yourself, I'm sure that you understand. Next, we're going to take our clippers, and this is where you're really going to start the shaping for that crescent moon. And the way that we'll do that is by holding our clippers, instead of at a 90 degree, you want to tilt them towards the customer or towards yourself at about a 45 degree. This is going to cut it like these here, so they look like little flames or like little horns. I've seen a lot of different ways to say it. I just think crescent moon sounds super cute, so that's what I'm going to go with. Next though, this is the product that I'll be using today. This product is new to me, and I got it from Makarrt. I've had the clear before for a while, so I wanted to do something with some color, and I ended up purchasing on Amazon a Makarrt polygel kit that did come with a 100/180 file. It also came with some decorations inside, which I won't be showing today. There is a base coat and a top coat inside as well, and then these are the 6 colors of polygels. One of them again is a repeat. It is a clear, but it's good to come inside of the kit, and I'll go ahead and go over the colors with you. This first one here is the clear color, and I really like Makartt's clear. It is very stiff, so for me that makes it very beginner friendly. This next one here is the color that I'm going to be using, and it's called Rose or Rosé. On their website, it doesn't have the little line over the E, so I believe it's Rose, but on the tube it's Rosé. This next one is Le Coral, and it is slightly peachier, or like more of a coral color compared to the pink that we did previously. This next color here is called Le Peach, I believe, and this one is definitely to me more of a peachy color, but very, very beautiful. And I want to just note that all these colors are quite translucent, so they'd be really good at like a neutral color on the nail, but I wouldn't necessarily use them as a cover color. They just more so would be used for accenting, or like I did today, some designs over it. I think that works really well. And this last one here is the white. Now, white polygels in general to me do tend to be a little bit softer, and I find with the Makartt ones that's absolutely true as well. The second color here though is the one that I'll be using today, and that's just going to be the only color, but I am also going to cap that with the clear, and I'll show you how I do it. So moving forward with the kit itself, I am also going to use the file that they sent, and then their base coat and top coat. Everything else is just going to get put to the side for now. I went ahead and also tried their nail dehydrator and primer. I do have to say, guys, I do not recommend this, although it smells like watermelons and it is beautiful. I don't find that they hold Gel X well, nor do they prep really well as far as dehydrating the nail's surface, at least enough for my nail beds. And I do tend to have like an oilier nail bed, I guess you would say. So in general, I swear by the Enailcouture's nail primer and their dehydrator, but for this video's purposes, I wanted to keep everything in the system together. And just so you guys know, they did pop off after about 4 days. But I do want to say that the Polygel itself, normally when I use it with my own like prep and dehydrator, works so much better. I just wanted to test it to see if maybe the Polygel would work better than the Gel X method, and unfortunately I just cannot get this primer and this dehydrator to work for me. Moving on, you are going to need some type of swipe solution when you work with Polygel. I happen to use this one here. It also smells like watermelon, and it is from Enailcouture, but you can just use isopropyl alcohol as long as it is 70% or higher. As you can see, this base coat was very secure, so I am happy that nothing spilled in transit before being delivered. But my god, I was just like aboard that struggle bus for a little while. So if you are going to be keeping your set on longer, you definitely want to make sure that you also prep the tip. And what I mean by that is either using 100% acetone and rubbing it on the tip to help blend it to the natural nail plate, or you can actually buff or file where the natural nail meets with the artificial nail tip, and you want to have that rough surface so that way this base gel has something to adhere to. Base gel, or any gel I should say, does not like smooth surfaces. So again, this was just me for the video purposes getting the set on, but for longevity and just as a tip in general, if you are just starting with Polygel, you definitely want to rough up that surface before you put the base coat. I did go ahead and use a brush that I purchased on Amazon, and this was just a mess. As soon as it touched the slip solution, it kind of got this really weird curve to it, which as you can see here was collecting product and just not at all working how I would like it to work. So I did end up swapping this one out because I just couldn't get it to work for me. And I mean, I'll probably keep it still for designing and for helping in that way, but as far as putting on, I recommend having a larger brush. This one that I'm using here is a Polygel brush from Kads, and that's spelled Kads. This brand is really well known on Amazon. They have awesome acrylic brushes as well. I seen this one as a recommendation, and I believe it was on Nails by Vic. So if you are interested in learning more about Polygel, her page is absolutely amazing, and that is who I kind of watched when I first was starting. So I would definitely recommend, and she has a brush similar to this one. So this one is a size 10, and I just think it smooths the surface really well. Now, my house was a little bit warmer today. I do live in Las Vegas, so unfortunately that made my Polygel just a little bit harder to work with. Polygel is going to be very susceptible to like the elements around it. So if your house is a little bit cooler, then that's going to cause it to be a little bit stiffer, which I actually really like my Polygel to be a bit stiffer. That way it's not moving around and I'm chasing it. And Makarrt's generally is. But again, because this one or this day was a little bit warmer, even with the AC on, it still was a bit softer. Once we have all nails applied though, and we like the opacity of the pink color, I'm just going to go ahead and go in and cap that pink and add some additional strength and a little bit more structure to the nail by using the clear. So I like to keep that closer to the cuticle line and kind of smooth it down and out. and then keep that apex area a little bit higher and really just kind of thin out as I get closer to the tip. And I'll kind of show here what I mean by that. But essentially, you'll just want to keep the product mainly close to where you want your apex to be built. And then the remainder of the product, like here, I'm just smoothing down the nail just so when I file, I'm not filing into the pink color or whatever color you should choose to use as your base. This is also a really good way for you to use colored polygel without having to repurchase the colors because they tend to be in smaller tubes. You can just get a large clear and then a trial of the colors that you would really like to use. And as long as you're capping them, you're not going to file away any of that color. And then you're not having to build up the strength or structure of the poly with just that color, because they will take a little bit longer to cure as well. This is what they look like, and I did do a full 60-second cure. Now, when working with polygel, you do want to have 70% or higher isopropyl alcohol on hand. There is going to be a sticky inhibition layer, and this is going to be helpful for when you're building. You don't want to wipe that away in between layers. And then you want to work in layers if you are trying to build more structure for length. But if you are all done, you no longer need that tacky surface. So you'll go in with just a lint-free wipe and then wipe away the inhibition layer. That way it's no longer sticky and it doesn't gunk up your nail drill if you're going to be using that, nor will it kind of like gunk up your files. Another recommendation I have when working with polygel is getting a nail dust collector. This is going to help save your lungs. Not everybody uses the actual like correct PPE, but if you're not going to be in a well-ventilated area, or if you are doing this for clients so you're going to be around the dust a little bit more, I definitely recommend having a better one than the one that I have. This one is one from Amazon. It definitely gets the job done for me being at home. But with a client, I definitely would use this and then use a mask as well. You really don't want those fine particles in your lungs. If so, you can develop flu-like symptoms. It's going to be similar to like the dip flu if you've ever done dip nails. And it is just very unpleasant. You'll have kind of like the nasally or sinus infection type of issues going on, maybe itchy or watery eyes, a slight cough. It's just not very fun. So I went ahead and pulled out my dust collector, and then for video purposes, I just want to use what's inside of the kit. So I'm not going to be using my E file to shape. I'm just going to be using the 100-180 nail file that they came with. And when you are crisping up a moon shape like this, you want to take the file and hold it just like you did with the clippers in the beginning, and kind of file it in a way that it's away from you. And then look at the side profile, make sure that you like the sharpness. It should go down at about a 45 degree. After that, the way that I file them is by first laying my file straight at the apex and filing down some of the bulk down to the free edge. And then I'll go in after that and kind of round it around the sides of the nail. And lastly, take that to the cuticle line. I do recommend looking at all angles, especially if you're just starting, because I learned in the beginning you can totally overfile because one angle looks one way and then you turn it and your entire nail is flat because you were just looking, you know, at one direction. So once you are finalized with this step here, I also recommend going in with a buffer. This file for me was more for shaping, so I wouldn't say that I would just use this, but I used the 100 side first to get all of the straight lines. I then used the 180 side over the entire surface of the nail to kind of smooth it. And to me, it wasn't 100% smooth, so I did go in with just a regular buffer that was a little bit finer, so that way I didn't have as deep of grooves in the nail surface. And then if you ever want to check where you're at, you can always go in with a stiff nail brush and kind of brush away those debris, just like I did here. And I'm kind of looking at it, making sure that I like the shape before I move on to the next nail. Now, at this point, I did off screen go ahead and buff just to finalize the smoothness, but this is the shape that we have. And as you can see from the side, there's a 45-degree angle, and then it looks like a little moon. So it's super cute. I've been really into new shapes lately, and I just wanted to try this one. I am going to go over this color though with my favorite brand for jelly like base colors, and this is by FZANEST. I'll list it below, but I absolutely love these jelly colors. This one is a really like healthy pink color. It's really not too bright, but it does brighten up the pink polygel from underneath, and I thought it complemented it really, really well. So I'm going to use this just because it's translucent, and I didn't want to lose the color of the polygel, but instead just enhance it a little bit. Just because in mine, I kind of wanted it to be more pink than what it was. After you get these all done, we'll cure for 60 seconds, and then I'm going to use this little dampen dish here upside down so I have something to stabilize. Now, originally I was going to go in with this raspberry color. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I was going to draw the flames with this, but I did decide instead to do a French tip, which ends up being a little bit hidden from the design, but I really like it still. And when I do my Frenchies, I do put a line right in the center so I can see where I'm connecting to. I'll then kind of start to pull the side of the smile line down towards that center. It doesn't necessarily have to be as high, but when I mark it, I know that that's where I'm going down to. And then once I have the two sides connected, then I'll go ahead and start filling it in, and you can always clean up. So for me, it makes sense to just do it a little bit more messy here, and then I can go in and clean up, which tends to be a little bit faster for me instead of trying to get everything perfect on the first take. This one, as you can tell, I didn't pick up enough gel, so womp womp. But I'm going to go ahead and fill this shape in. I did also want to mention, when you are doing gel polish, it is very important that you cap the free edge of the nail, and this will make it a lot less likely for you or your customer to have any chipping when there's gel polish. You also want to keep the polish relatively thin in between coats, that way it cures completely. That will stop you from having any weird ripples or bubbles while curing. But additionally, it's going to give you more time to work with the product. If you're constantly putting it on thick and it's bubbling, you're going to have to go back and forth to fix what's going on, compared to if you just did it really thin and you do this little tip here and actually cap the edge. It's going to cure a lot easier for you. Now, that brush earlier that I did try to use for the polygel definitely was not working, but I did make it work here to clean up, and I'm just going to go ahead and repeat that on every single finger. So I won't bore you and have you watch the entire process, but I'll just speed it up and show clips of me doing each one. And essentially it's the same exact thing. I put the line down the center of the nail. I'm then going to go ahead and pull the sides down towards it. Make sure that I'm working in a thin layer and then curing it once I've capped that free edge off. If there are any mistakes, or if I went in to clean up, I just used that same little UV brush that I had from earlier. And this was also from Amazon. It came in a pack of 4. I do recommend them for this, for like nail art and cleaning up. I just wouldn't recommend them for what they are supposed to be for, which is for like polygel and UV gels. I just think the shape was really weird. But this is where we're at after we have done all 4. I was going to go in with this lemonade color. This is really cute, and I was thinking of like pink on pink on pink, and it was going to be super girly, and I kept the design option that I went with, but I did end up changing this. I left the clip in though so you could see just what it would have looked like, but to me it just ended up a lot better by having the pop of color that I decided to change it to. And when I draw flames, I do draw them a little bit different than I've seen others, and this is just what works for me. So whatever works for you, I would say definitely stick with that. For me, I like to draw the line first that's going to connect it to the free edge of the nail, And then I'll go in and kind of press a little bit harder on the brush so it's thicker, and then do a swiping or like a curve type of motion. And as I'm doing that, I'm letting go of pressure so it thins out at the top of the flame. And then, of course, going in and connecting those two lines so that they look a little bit more seamless and it looks more like the traditional flames that you see on nails. Once you've kind of got this motion down, then you're just going to want to repeat it. You can make bigger or smaller lines from the bottom and then kind of do the pull and drag so that way one side is bigger than the other. Flames are definitely something that are very, I think, personal, and each person does them a little bit different or wants them to look a little bit different. So again, this is just the type of way that I do it, or the method that I do them in. But if you do it differently, that is totally fine. At this point though, I was able to tell that this just was not working for me. I just didn't like it. So back to the alcohol we go. I'm going to use that and just a lint-free wipe. I did end up wiping all of them just to make sure that there wasn't any lint or anything from me going back and forth on top of the towel. But now we are here, and this is our blank canvas again. So zooming back in, this is the color I actually ended up using. And again, if you have not watched my review on these Beetles liners, they are amazing. I used to use the Young Nails Mission Control. I changed that for the Savvyland pots because they essentially did the same exact thing. And I have a video on that as well if you prefer to use the gel paint pots. But once I got these, my gosh, I've done so much more work with them and so much more art. And I just feel like they're very, very opaque. They're very good for the price. You get a lot of products because, again, you're not going to use a lot while you're drawing just lines with them. You definitely can use them to color the nail if you wanted to. Just, I would recommend a different brush then, and maybe putting it on a little pellet to get it instead of using this one. But overall, 10 out of 10, I would definitely repurchase these. And I am going to be grabbing some different colors pretty soon. I'll probably do a review on those as well. At this point in the tutorial, though, I am literally doing the exact same technique that I did from the pink one previously. So I'm just going to play a little bit of music while you watch in real time how I do these, and then I will be right back.
Every minute, man, I swear that she can get it. Say if you a bad bitch, put your hands up high, hands up high, hands up high. Tell them turn the lights down right now, put me in the mood. I'm talking about dark perfume. Go.
I recognize your fragrance. Hold up, you ain't never gotta say shit. And I know your taste is a little bit high maintenance. Everybody else basic. You live life on an everyday basis with poetic justice. Poetic justice. If I told you that a flower bloomed in a dark room, would you trust it? I mean, I write poems in these songs dedicated to you when you're in the mood for empathy. There's blood in my pen. Better yet, with your friends and them. I really wanna know you all. I really wanna show you off. Fuck God, pour up plenty of champagne. Cold nights when you curse this name. You called up your girlfriends and y'all curled in that little bitty range. I heard that she wanna go and party. She wanna go and party. Nigga don't approach her with that Atari. Nigga that ain't good, game home is sorry. They say conversation rule a nation. I can tell, but I could never right my wrongs unless I write it down for real. P.S. You can get it, you can get it, you can get it, you can get it. And I know you, know you, know you, know you, know you what you want. Oh, what it got this, put it in a song. Alright. You can get it, you can get it, you can get it, you can get it. And I know you, know you, know you, know you, know you what you want. Oh, what it got this, put it
swear that she can get it. Say if you a bad bitch, put your hands up high. Hands up high. Hands up high. Tell them dim the lights down right now. Put me in the mood. I'm talking about dark room perfume. Go, go.
I recognize your fragrance. Hold up, you ain't never gotta say shit. And I know your taste is a little bit high maintenance. Everybody else basic. You live life on an everyday basis with poetic justice. Poetic justice. If I told you that a flower bloomed in a dark room, would you trust it? I mean, I write poems in these songs dedicated to you when you're in the mood for empathy. There's blood in my pen. Better yet, with your friends and them. I really wanna know you all. I really wanna show you off. Fuck God, pour up plenty of champagne. Cold nights when you curse this name. You called up your girlfriends and y'all curled in that little bitty range. I heard that she wanna go and party. She wanna go and party. Nigga don't approach her with that Atari. Nigga that ain't good game home is sorry. They say conversation rule a nation. I can tell, but I could never right my wrongs unless I write it down for real. P.S. You can get it, you can get it, you can get it, you can get it. And I know you what you want. Oh, what it just put it in the song. Alright. You can get it, you can get it, you can get it, you can get it. And I know you what you want. Oh, what it just put it in the song. Alright.
Okay, so at this point, once we are done with the flames, I went ahead and cured, and this is what they look like. They are very, very pretty to me, and I could have just did like a velvet top coat, and I think that would have been totally cute too, but instead I went in with these smaller rhinestones. These ones are just from Amazon, I believe. It's where I purchased like a big lot of different ones, and I would recommend them for like art like this. I wouldn't say necessarily for a customer or anything, but just for something fun or for in-betweens, I would recommend them. They're not like the best quality and like super shiny, but they definitely get the job done. I also am going to be using my 2-in-1 top coat and adhesive, and that's from Enailcouture. It is called Diamond Gel, and it's just a thicker top coat, but it's a built-in rhinestone adhesive, and I really like to use it because I don't have to then go in with a top coat afterwards. I do tend to do that in most cases anyways, but if I'm ever in a hurry or I forget, it's good to know that it's already top coated for me. And so you want to be very careful with this and put a pretty decent layer, so that way there's something for the rhinestones to actually stick to. And then I do tap my tweezers right at the end, so that way there's a little bit of the adhesive, making it easier to grab the stones themselves. And this is just something that I do. You don't necessarily have to, but to me it makes it a little bit easier to pick those rhinestones up instead of on relying on just actually pinching those individual stones, because I make a mess with that. But we're going to get anywhere between 3 and 4 rhinestones on each nail before curing. And I show that process here individually. Once we're done though with this portion, then you are going to do a full cure.
Wondering if you can fuck with me better. Hit your phone like a
once they come out of the full 60-second cure, this is what they look like. So I am going to go in with this set and go ahead and still put a top coat on. If you wanted to, you can totally leave them as they are, but I'm going to go in just for additional strength and use my Wonder Gel. Now, in most cases, you don't want to cover up your rhinestone with any type of top coat because it can make them dull. But in this case, these were cheaper rhinestones and I didn't want them to rub off on their own, so I needed something to protect them. If you ever have pearls that you're going to use and they aren't like the best quality, they're ones that you purchase from Shein or Amazon, you can also put top coat over those and they will kind of protect then that look. But this is what these will look like, even with the top coat over them. And they're so small, you don't really notice anything, you know, that's blocking them from being shiny. I absolutely love Enailcouture's cuticle oil. It smells so good. It smells like cotton candy. It's very sweet, and I find it to be super nourishing. So I'm going to go ahead and do this just so we can get some photos so you can see the final look. But we're going to walk this around the cuticle line and then gently rub it in, not completely, but just enough so it's not right on the edges. And we are all done. If you got this far, I do want to thank you so much for all of the love and support. I want to thank everyone for my 600 subscribers, and anyone that's new, welcome to the channel. Definitely feel free to comment any questions or comments below. I love reading them and reaching out.
Say hasta luego. Muy bien, rapping kilo. Snub nose.